so much for joining the next episode of our Roundtable events here at Amicus as part of the live series. Something we're obviously looking to do a lot more of at the moment, getting some in-person events going, but I think in the meantime it's really important to keep these kind of conversations going remotely. So really appreciate all of you taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with me this evening. So what I'm going to do quickly is just give everyone a really brief introduction, and then I'll come round to each of you individually and just ask you to do a little bit more of an in-depth kind of background on yourself. So the topic we're going to be discussing today is the best approach for building an MVP within a startup. So we'll quickly go around the panel. So first of all, we have Kirill, who is the founding engineer and CTO at Natural Cycles. We have Alex, who is the CTO at Glaze. David is co-founder and CTO at Easysize, and Erum is currently chapter lead with Danske Bank. So Erum, we came to you last there. We'll come to you first for the introduction, if that's okay. I know you've taken part in one of these events before, but for anyone who's new and not met you before, could you just give us a brief intro and background on yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Currently, I'm working in Danske Bank as a chapter lead. We're responsible for both people management and also technical leadership side. And yeah, I've been in the bank from last 4 years, but overall been working in software industry more than 10 years, in which I have designed and built different software solution applications in different domains, health, agriculture, security solution. But now from last 6 years, primary focus in fintechs, financial industry. Yeah, that's me.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. No problem at all. Thanks a lot for coming. David, we'll come to you next, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've been working in tech for 30 years now. Started off with some consulting work and like a big consulting firm, and then moved around from industry to industry a little bit. Worked in a mobile agency for a bit, then was in charge of a post-acquisition transition of one company, and then moved to Denmark and started at Easysize 8.5 years ago, and I'm still here. So that's the longest ride I ever had so far, for sure. But yeah, I got to wear many hats during my career, both as a programmer, as a manager, as a business kind of strategy participant as well, and as a product manager as well. So yeah, I have a lot of opinions.
Perfect. That's what we like to hear. That's what we need. So yeah, looking forward to that. Alex, we'll come to you next. Yourself and a little bit about Glaze would be great.
Hello everyone, Aleksandar here. Originally from Macedonia. I've been living in Denmark for years. I spent 12-13 years products and roles, and the last 4 years with startups. Today, the most of my day is spent with.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Kirill.
Yes, I'm Kirill. I'm originally from. I represent Natural Cycles, a very unique and special type of company and startup or scale-up. What we do is we make every product. That's a really nice mission, but practically we are reception, or in US it will be called birth control. So basically we're a mobile app that allows to be used to prevent pregnancies. And we are the first and only in the world that are FDA cleared and approved in Europe for use. So pretty spectacular, but in short, that's what we are. And I'm 20 plus years in tech, last 9 years at Natural Cycles, also longest ride for me. Currently a CTO, but also was the first engineer hired there. And yeah, it's been very exciting. Happy to be here.
Amazing. Yeah, very happy you're here. Thank you very much for joining again. So we'll jump straight into things really. Now, obviously, the reason that all of you are here today is because you've got so much relevance in terms of this topic. So being able to build that initial products within a startup environment. Now, I imagine the answer for you will differ a little bit here. But does anyone want to maybe get us started on what the initial idea generation is like when building an MVP? So who's actually been involved in that initial, having the kind of light bulb moment and this is what we need to build, and what's the process of that actually like when it first happens?
Yeah, I can start if no one else wants to. Like usually, there's two routes from my experience. There's the kind of enthusiasm route where there's just someone who has an idea of some problem or like a solution for something that they don't see in the world or they see a market for, right? And those people most often don't really know what to do with it and how to build it, and they just start a company and hire engineers and they build it. Or then the second, like really common, the more I kind of got through my career, the more I started seeing people who kind of approach it from like a more methodical standpoint, where, you know, starting from like validations of hypotheses and bets that they're making. And that's like, in my view, trying both ways, the second way is definitely the more successful one, where you see like an idea or a bet or a hypothesis that you can make, and then you just validate it through an MVP or any other way, and then see if there is a product market fit for that product that you imagined, or there is a market for it and there is a demand to purchase it, and so on. So overall, the MVP is the vehicle for you to test if the product that you imagined solves the problem you wanted to solve, and it has a market with people who are willing to pay for the product that you built, right? So that's kind of the overall picture, the way I see it.
Yeah, and just on that, like from a personal perspective with yourself, David, like when you joined Easysize, what was it about their mission that made you think like this is something that I can really kind of take far?
I can tell you, like in Easysize, we have a great example of both of these approaches, right? So when the company at its inception, Gulnaz, our founder, she saw that kind of demand on the market for people who are buying clothing and not really getting the right size, or the success rate on getting the right size every time is really low. And there is a whole hassle with the returns, and also in the environmental impact that the fashion industry generates from that as well, right? So she started with like a problem first. So there's a problem with sizing and fitting, and her take was, as like most founders, especially non-technical ones, like, let's just get together some people, we'll get some funding, we'll build some MVP and or version of product, we'll get our first clients and kind of go from there. And that's what we did for the first 5 to 6 years, because that kind of naturally leads you to so it's not where you build a product like from your vision, is like when you try to find the product that's there, right? You know the problem, and you're going to find which product will be the one that actually people for to solve that problem. And we ended up working with a lot of cool companies, especially large enterprises, right? We worked with like eBay and BP, and that was really nice and cool to work with kind of giants. But then we didn't manage to build the stable enough product that would kind of grow and scale as a startup is expected to. So like after maybe 15, 20 clients, we were generating some revenue, but nothing to write home about, as the saying goes. And then in 2019, where we kind of all got a lot of experience in the industry and the domain knowledge, what we saw is that there was a new niche on the market, which just kind of started rising. It was direct to consumer brands. And what we saw is that there's a lot of new brands coming out, and there's not really a big product for sizing and fitting for those brands. Most of our competitors had the same exact product we had at the time, and kind of it didn't really fit well with that new audience. And then we had this idea of like just completely pivoting 180 degrees and going completely the other way, not towards the enterprises, but towards small and medium businesses, especially D2C brands. And I had this idea how we can build it on top of the technology we had, on top of the data we collected over the years. And we built it, and we started kind of trying to test it on the market, trying to find those D2C brands and sell it to, and so on and so forth. And it was kind of going okay. We had in the first months maybe five customers or something, but then Corona hit, and that changed the whole situation. The trends on D2C brands started skyrocketing, and we closed the first year, the 2020, we closed with 100 customers on that new product. And we, at that point, that was the time where for the first time in my life, I felt the product market fit, because it was the year of complete onboarding. Every day we just onboarded customers. As the same as Zoom, we didn't have time to work on the product at all. So whatever we built in that 1 month prior to that as an MVP, that was the product all customers used for pretty much the whole year, because we didn't have resources to work on it. And that's where we're like, okay, now we got to the first milestone, 100 customers, and from that point, it was more strategically working on this product that we now knew has a lot more potential than the one we had before. And we started just validating ideas on like whether we should add a dashboard for them, or whether we should add a self-service solution for them, or whether we should change the processes that they have on the way they restock items and so on. And yeah, we essentially doubled the second year to 200, and the third year we doubled that to 400 again. So that was the better way for us, at least, to get to the proper product market fit, for sure.
No, sounds like it 100%. Like you say, it's interesting, obviously, just being thrown into the deep end, like you say, in that year when I think so many people were as well, but especially in like the online kind of e-commerce sector. I mean, it must have been pretty crazy. So, anyone else kind of got any advancements on like the initial kind of idea generation behind that? Like, has anybody else been involved in that kind of process previously? And if so, what was it like for you?
Yeah, I think that's from my front and from my previous experience, where we built first digital pension solution of Denmark. So it was also, so one is, kind of coming with a vision, a very innovative idea, or kind of like finding some market fit. But then there is also a problem where we have so many legacy systems from back in the days, which was fit very well and solve all the problems, have customers and everything, but they are slow. So more is to introduce the more digitalizations in the advanced frameworks and new framework technology. So here it's also come with the idea of how we prove that, come with a small POC, some MVP to showcase that we can adopt and we can migrate from an old framework, old system to the new one. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you very much. I think Kirill, were you going to kind of jump in on that as well?
I can share some thoughts. So you asked about idea generation and MVP. I like the saying, might be a bit controversial, but like idea is cheap, execution is everything. So basically and I'm speaking here not from Natural Cycles experience, but from like some other startups, for example, or startup weekends, or observing how other startups do. Basically, the sooner you get them to the kind of figuring out the way on the way. So important is to have like the right team, right setup, and start iterating, and be in this process of finding product market fit, and basically iterating, changing until you sense that there is a product market fit. So because like it's hard. I mean, it's very hard idea or validate the idea without executing something and trying and validating by that. So yeah, pretty much execution is everything. So start building, iterating, and finding, on one hand, finding this product market fit towards like the audience and your market. On the other hand, I think it's very important also trying to find the fit of does this team work, or this. In the startup, we're usually talking about this small team or founding team, and yeah, first engineers or first employees. So does this work? Does this setup work? And are we fast? Are we doing the right thing? Along these lines.
Awesome. And anyone kind of got any advancements on what Kirill just said? Because it's like, say, quite a big statement. But has anybody kind of got any advancements or anything on he's just said?
In my experience, like sorry, go ahead.
No worries. I just wanted to say it's interesting how things devolve and how they get born. The idea of Glaze started with a problem. In particular, we knew that there was such a big, a long tail of legacy systems, that are essentially they're being neglected on the market. So when Glaze is a real-time, brand new, modern, we think of it as the easiest way to order and pay. but the concept, started as, can we take all these thousands of, legacy, even large supermarkets, chains, retail stores, and bring them online in a second? And to be able to, grow to do that, you need to start simply. So we chose and cherry-picked people that were able to, give us the industry knowledge, which we didn't. We had learning, understanding, running, let's say, operation on a global scale, but we didn't know anything about retail or hospitality. And so we started, building together with partners, which grew up to a model which now you could sign up with Glaze. It's completely live and online. It will take you less than 60 seconds, no demos, not anything. But you could also be a reseller, and you could actually white label, and you will never see Glaze. The idea why I'm saying this is, instead of marketing and growing, so to speak, and exploring, we were building it step by step. It's talking to people from industry, and we actually reached or are reaching product market sales fit, because we spend no money on advertisement. There is no Glaze advertisement besides maybe us posting a few posts on LinkedIn, because we didn't even want to grow that much that fast. But we were deliberate. It's actually, in how we grow, that the features we do is not one-off feature that, customer A needs and customer needs B needs something else. So we build like all these integration hooks. And maybe just to sum up why, Glaze, well, I originally talked about, when I built the first, let's say, iterations of Glaze, I thought as exoskeleton. Easy to put on, like you're not going to change a big operation, you're not going to change their, training, you're not going to change their device, but they should be able to try, and if they like, keep it, and if you don't like, they put it, away without risk. But it became so smooth and nice that essentially it feels like Glaze. No matter what you run in behind the scenes, your front-end customer experience are going to be smooth. And maybe what's more to say, we haven't onboarded hundreds of customers, but I can say we never lost one either. So it's going the right direction.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. Retention is, in some people may say that it's actually, more important than winning new customers. So that's obviously a big part of it as well. David, were you going to jump in and add something to something that Kirill or Alex had said?
Yeah, just a small comment from me on what Kirill has said is regarding the execution versus the ideation, right? It's definitely, the execution is like one of the most crucial parts, right? In anyone who considers ideas to be more prevalent than execution, they just kind of take it for granted and assuming that you can always find people to do the good job. But one of the startups I've seen, my friend started from an idea of a social service, like a kind of streaming service, and then they build a product around that, but they didn't find any product market fit. But then with going through that, they build a really, really good team doing that. So what they're doing now is just trying to figure out what other product they could do, because that one didn't find the product market fit. And I think just to add to what Kirill said, I think it's definitely really important, but I don't think for every idea there is a team that can get it to product market fit. There's definitely dead product ideas for sure that, almost no one can be successful unless it's the right time or the right random, the right entropy for that idea to get some traction on the market. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Erum, you come in.
Yeah, I wanted to add. So I also seen, some few times, and also have been working few projects where the technical foundation was really strong, scalable, but the product didn't find its market fit. So here, and in my experience, those products were mostly started by a technical founder, and being a technician, we just dive into solution mode, right? And then there is a whole world in front of us, and then we forget how it looked like in the business world. And similarly, if you look at business people who have no idea about any framework, any technical skills, nothing, but they come up with an awesome idea from nowhere, and it has a market fit. So, you know, and there I feel like, yeah, being a technician is maybe good to just focus or solution, build solutions which solve more technical problems rather than business. But we are good in executing it and building business solutions for sure. But diving more into technical might also become like lost, and refining product more on the technical side. But then it, yeah, then fit into the market.
That's a really good point. That's something I was going to bring up actually. Just as David was speaking, and then Erum, you've kind of gone a little bit further into it as well. Does anybody think it's possible to find product market fit without having an MVP in place? Or do you really need to have that product in front of potential customers to work out whether or not it could be a business?
I can give you my opinion. I think definitely it's possible, like 100%. And I saw Kirill kind of nodding no, but it all depends on what kind of idea it is, right? So one of the kind of like one of the examples of the product that you could do that with would be like some time killer mobile game, right? Like those kind of match 3 kind of games that they all essentially the revolve around what's your acquisition strategy for users, right? It doesn't matter what kind of game you have. Those kind of time killer match 3 type of games, they just compete for the same user base with ads on like Facebook or Instagram or what have you. So even no matter what good kind of captivating game you created, if you don't have that user acquisition strategy, you don't have a product market fit, right? So in that way, like if you were to start a game like that today, you would probably have to figure out first how you're going to get those users in, and that validation alone, if you just do like fake app store kind of pages and kind of start selling ads and seeing like what your CAC looks like, that would be a validation good enough for you. That would be an MVP of your approach, right? Because MVP is kind of, it depends what your product is. For some companies, the marketing is the product, or the sales funnel is the product. So for them, that they don't need the technological kind of the coders to do the MVP. They need, you know, the creatives and the marketing people to do the MVP for sure.
So it boils down to what is the product. Then yeah, to agree with you. So if marketing is a product, it could be validated, but otherwise it's maybe it's a terminology question, like product market fit. There is a product in it. So if something else is a product, then yes. But if there's no product, I struggle to find the.
I mean, like you can find the market fit, right? Yeah. If you like the product market fit, it kind of dictates that the product has to be tested, but like the some version of a product, right? So it's not whether the market is there or not, right? So yeah, I totally agree with Kirill.
I remember the example, you know, let's say I've been long enough to remember the example of Dropbox when, you know, maybe you remember the story. The founder created an idea and with paper clips made the magic of files syncing through phones, and there was no product, no coding at all. The simple video on YouTube, which got 70,000 plus subscribers, you know, in a week. That's clearly, you know, a possible but highly improbable scenarios for, you know, that happens like maybe once in 10 million, you know, for all practical purposes. I would expect that, you know, you need to do some product to reach the fit.
That's actually a really good point.
Paid subscribers? Sorry to interrupt. Was it paid subscribers or just like email subscribers?
Email subscribers. That was just to test the concept. You can look up the video. You know, it's very funny. Early 2000s, you know, with you know, paper clips. You know,
but it was completely free at the time when it launched as well.
Yes,
like, they didn't have a paid plan.
Because you know, when people do validation, it's like if you go on the street and ask many people, would you use it? A lot of people would say yes, but then would you pay it? Also, would you pay for it? A lot of people also would say yes, but when the moment you ask to pay for it, 80% of them will churn. It's like very different. So it's not really it's validating of marketing or validating of the message. It's still not a product.
Like a funny thing about this story is that like it was a day when, you know, the Dropbox product was an innovation, right? So no one knew that those things existed. Like that like 2000s and early maybe even 2010s, that was the year where like there was a bunch of free products that were just like completely brand new and no one ever seen anything like it, and now we are getting one like maybe every 5 years or so. So when we're like, that's why it feels like, you know, as of today everything has been invented. So like now we have the most effective tactics, right? So why wouldn't you use them? They just didn't have that back then. So they were just doing random stuff, and then like a bunch of startups kind of stuck to the wall. And then we know them now, but was 100 more, or not even maybe thousands, where they also did that, but no one has seen it because they didn't get the right type of entropy on board.
Yeah. But yeah, it's some really interesting points brought there, and it's like we're talking about again about product market fit. I mean, there's so many different ways to interpret that. I appreciate it's quite a general question, but I think some really good points brought up from everyone there, and it was making me think then as well, just about once you feel you found that product market fit or that market fit, you kind of at a point where you have some traction. At which point do you feel then that the time is to start advancing on that, to start hiring engineers, to start growing the team? Like, how comfortable do you have to be with that fit that you found to start really scaling?
I can start. It's just like ways, obviously, but maybe I will state something very obvious, but I think the biggest loss kind of a productivity or efficiency in the team is when you go above one engineer, because you cannot beat the machine, the efficiency, the power of everything in one head of one person. It's like, it's unbeatable. It's like 10x engineer feeling. It's like, so, and how to interpret it to your question is basically, I would stay with that in that mode as long as possible without the risks. In the modern world, in the bigger companies, everyone will say, oh, buzz factor, risk, one person knows it all, it's too risky. But for startup, it doesn't matter. It's vice versa. It's the most efficient you can get. And this person founder, that's really ideal, and you don't hire anyone. Or it's like first person you hire this one person that could do anything. You probably wouldn't hire one backend, one front end, or something. Something ideally is to hire the first engineer to be the most universal, do it all kind of person, and to stay as long as, maybe controversial, but stay as long as possible. And the moment you like become two, and you then you need to align code review and stuff, and it's not the end of the world, but it's a very different stage. So it's hot take.
Any advances on Kirill's hot take?
Yeah, I can give you my first sense as well. Like I on one side I totally agree with Kirill. Like that's because I was also that first developer, and we did have a front end separation, but we had a lot more technological product. I think in terms of like the amount of programming was like 95% in the beginning, I think, out of the whole product, because we were super like niche product on the whole flow for shoppers, but behind the scenes it was too much to be handled by one person. But yeah, of course, like the moment you get more developers, everything gets slower and more complex, and suddenly you start seeing mistakes that weren't there, so you have to do the processes and like code reviews and that kind of stuff that you didn't need to do before. So that's that. But like overall, I think the moment where you kind of start going from like when you're too overwhelmed by onboarding, I think that's where you start shifting to the next gear, because when all your problem is scaling, then like something needs to change on the bottom line as well, and you need to start working on the product and optimizing it and reducing some manual labor involved, because everyone does like 10-15% of all the processes in the product manually in the first kind of year, because you don't want to build stuff that you don't know if it's going to be needed or it's going to be in demand in general as a feature. So yeah, it's like at some point you kind of feel it But like, I think that's the saying, right? That like you if you have to ask if you have product market fit, then that means you don't have it. Like I definitely got that feeling in 2020, where like, okay, now I know how it feels like. Now we don't even need to ask. Like we just need to start gearing up for the scale.
If I may, a second, there are a couple of threads I would like to pull in the whole conversation. It's a topic that you could actually, look into multitude of latitudes, like from, down the weeds on daily basis to, 100 kilometers above sea level. First, I think it's better to just think in terms of product market sales fit, assuming that you have a product and that product needs some sales, and that means like a coherent story that not only your team but also customers and real life people needs to understand. And the second thing is scaling is a multi-dimensional, if you like, topic. Scaling as a business and scaling as a team is a different thing. And in my mind, I really, if let's say if someone asked me what's the ideal scale, well, I would say small team, big impact, in a sense that you probably, don't need, to hire 100 people for 100 customers. Like ideal cases, maybe again, looking at the outliers there is, was it like the Instagram, like 16 people, $1 billion, right? You don't, with competent people, with 21st century cloud technology, essentially, you just need, clarity in what you're doing, how and why. And then, nailing down things like, so to speak, day-to-day basis will allow you to scale without scaling manpower necessarily.
That's a really good point. I think that's, and again, like you said yourself, Alex, that could open up so many different lines of conversation, especially when it comes to things like work-life balance and all that kind of stuff as well. There's obviously a huge kind of path to go down there. And that was just, again, bringing on to another thing which we wanted to discuss, which was like budgeting, which is obviously, when you're in startup phase, it's everything. Without a budget, without, good cash flow, you're never going to have a business to build your products for. When we take into account scaling, bringing engineers into the team, what do you feel, I guess there's no one correct approach if you're doing it, but from what you've done in the past and startups that you've all worked in previously, for example, would you go for a team of like 5 or 6 engineers, like we've been speaking about, that are, maybe on slightly lower salaries, but have 3 or 4 years of experience? Or would you go and find 1 or 2 people at the very kind of top of their game and expect them to kind of manage that in a better way than maybe a larger team would?
Again, this is a matter of, there's no right way. There's no best way. Everyone, knows what, like, should find their best way in the context they are. The things that work for me might not have worked for you. My personal approach would be, cherry pick people that are, experienced. And then I don't mean just like in writing code, thinking on different latitudes. You cannot delegate understanding. You cannot delegate experience, in particular with startup. In particular, when you're, still, might be even just negative, cash flow. You're just you have a constant burn rate. Budgeting, in my mind, in those early days is interchangeable with, your manpower. So everything you are doing, which does not help you do real life impact daily or hourly, is, essentially, wrong budgeting, right? Now going back, why I say, you cannot delegate understanding, you cannot delegate experiences, because often, when you, let's say, build an MVP, you're, sometimes people come with a PowerPoint, they need a design. You, with drawing from experience, can, take shortcuts. You could trim and prune, and you still can have meaningful user experience that, maybe a person with, let's say, a few years less, could still think for lack of, for example, a lack of confidence. They might think that they need the best absolute product on the market. No, you need to have the product that works for particular people good enough that they might be, the users for you. So why I'm saying this, there are a bunch of, ways let's just think of Airbnb. Two tiny organization we had. I have an idea of next marketplace of sorts. I log into Airbnb, I just see a listing. If the point of my, let's say MVP or the stage I am, is to produce a kick-ass, user flow, which is incredibly smooth that, people would like. I don't really need to know how let's say the data behind the listing is there. Did I hire, developers to build onboarding, sign up, professional photographers? No, I could just grab JSON and stick it in the database. From end user perspective, this would be essentially like a finished product. I can book with you, even though I might have done it through Postman. You see, and this just conversation, we took like a month or two, shortcut, which we did not make a sign up, we did not make onboarding, we did not hire photographers to make but you could still book with you. So, and again, goes back to the shortcuts. I somehow feel like, in the age of today, maybe going forward with AI, things will be differently, but the age of today, you still have to have real life product experience to know which shortcuts would give you a boost and which shortcuts could kill you.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, it's obviously a huge thing, isn't it? Like you say, and working out which of those shortcuts is going to be which is, I imagine, exciting, but also pretty scary along the way. I was going to come to you, Erum, because I know you've got a lot of experience, obviously, prior to Danske Bank, working in a number of different startups. And when it comes to hiring teams yourself in the past, what have you kind of found has been your kind of most successful approach?
Yeah. When it comes to scaling and adding more people in the team, it's also very crucial and important to keep the confidence level of the people who are currently in the team, who have invested initially a lot, while you are bringing more in. So what I have learned and experienced, and the best approach I find it to go with a good balance in the seniority. If there is a senior, for example, if at that stage I have a senior, then I probably lean to hire a comparable junior developer. So the senior one can share the knowledge, and then senior one also probably wanted to grow up himself further up, right? Either horizontally in the team, in the product development, and this I find it where developer also feel very motivated that they also the one who are in the team has space to grow up, and the junior one also bring it in, but also being crucial to put two same senior people on the same task is also a bit challenging. So it's good to just delegate separately, so they won't collide, but they still progress and work together. Yeah, so it's not only just bringing new people in, but it's also the people who are currently in the team, because at the end they all have to work together.
Yeah. And again, it comes down to that point. I know we were talking about customers before, but retention versus bringing new people in is obviously such a big thing on both sides of it. Sorry, Kirill, didn't mean to cut you off there.
I want to add, yeah, we actually have a formula. So we try to hire one junior and match it with one senior. So kind of officialize it in like a buddy program. So we only hire junior when we have like a spare senior, mid-senior person to tie with for like 6 months, a year. So that could be like, it could change, but roughly keeping that trajectory. I read it somewhere that it's a thing. Someone else is doing this 1-1, and it makes total sense. So I think it works both ways and works great. But we are sometimes we are lacking more senior people, and then we wait and we don't hire because it's a bit of a risk, because junior person left alone, it's a risk. They won't develop as much. And but all balance is very important. makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree with that approach from Kirill. Like you can't have juniors without seniors. That's just, you'll never end up using anything they wrote, essentially. Like, or someone will have to rewrite it. But like the if going back to like the original question, like for me it's kind of two parts that are equally important. There's the budgeting part, is the way I look at it, and the way we look at it in the team is more from like a business standpoint. So any budget or any round we raise with a specific goal or milestone, the next milestone in mind, and the specific timeline, right? So when you play the startup game, right, you know that how much, let's say, ARR you need to have to get to the Series B or Series A, and then you say, okay, how fast we can get there, and then you end up with like, okay, we can do this many people and we'll get it there in like a year, or we can do less people, we'll be less stressed, we'll have more chance of success, but we'll go slower, like in 2 years, right? So, and that's you just make that kind of trade-offs when you think about the budget. When it comes to like hiring senior, mid, or junior, like I always want to hire as much possible senior people, but it's really hard in the beginning, I think. Like when you don't have a kind of a sexy product yet, you don't have a lot of customers, it's really hard to find like a senior person who would join you and not be there just like for the paycheck, or like to have a good title. So what I usually do is like I really like to hire people with a high internal drive. No matter whatever skills they have, people with high internal drive will definitely improve, and they kind of fill like gas, right? Fill out the space that you give them. Like when Gulnaz, our founder, she hired me. That's like the funny story from my career. So I moved to Denmark because but I didn't speak English and I didn't know Python. And then 2 months in, I landed a job as a lead Python developer in an English speaking company. And basically my whole pitch was that I'm driven enough that if you give me a chance, I'll be the best Python developer you ever seen. And yeah, 8 years later, I'm still there, being a co-founder and CTO now. So yeah, like I definitely always bet on people with high internal drive over any hard skills that the people can learn or the number of years they have on their CV.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's a cool story as well. Like, I guess, yeah, that's a very difficult thing to judge as well. But like you say, if someone's got the drive to do it, they're going to do it. It's like the saying that you see a lot around is like completely the opposite to what you've said, but also still has some relevance. Is like if you hire a lazy person to do a job, they'll always find the easiest way to do something. So like you say, it's not always just, who's got what skills, how many years they've been doing that for. It's a lot deeper than that. And especially
in tech, sometimes the easiest way is just to blame it on other people.
Yeah.
So that's why in tech it doesn't always. I think if you hire a factory worker that's lazy, you can definitely profit from the laziness.
Yeah, 100%.
But especially in a remote company, I don't think like lazy people can. Like it's not that hard for them to find the way not to work.
Yeah, there's always a way around it. I was just going to come to like something a little bit more kind of, obviously everyone, as I said in this call, has been through that kind of initial MVP process about, being in the very kind of first days of a startup. I'd imagine that all of you, and if you say you haven't, I'd really struggle to believe you. I'm sure everyone's made mistakes. I'm sure everyone has done things that they look back and, with the benefit of hindsight, I think I would have done this a lot differently. But at the same time, also had some incredible ideas, had some things that really worked for them. So I wanted to just discuss like some of the kind of big highs and the big lows that people have had when it comes to that kind of initial product build and finding the fit for your product as well. Has anyone got any like amazing like positive stories or incredible horror stories about things that happened to them whilst working in like an early age business?
Yeah, I can go first. It's just I'm talking too much. I always give other people chance.
Don't worry, it's okay.
To start jump in. Like I think that the common problems are always there for everyone. That like if it's a B2C product, you always think that you are the target audience. It's like I would use it, so let's do everything that I think we should do. and then we'll start testing it on other people once it's done. It's like a default programmer building a B2C product. And for B2B, it's most commonly it's like you kind of test it like yourself, and then you as a technical person, you always learn a few tricks how to make the software work. And they're like, like to get to the next step, you just need to go back and then forward. Like it's just that we know it's a known bug, but like everyone seems to figure it out, and they never do. Like the complexity of UI UX is I think the biggest problem, where you test it on like people in your tech company, and then you deploy it on a client or a customer. They don't have technical people, then they're like, I don't understand what to do here. So that's not testing at the right time. I think that's the biggest problem for everyone, for sure. But yeah, I don't really have any like horror stories where like everything went to shit.
Yeah,
And
well, that's good to hear.
But it's not in the product. Not like, I think like to make a horrible mistake in the product is they need to be like really, really oblivious because it takes like few months to make that mistake.
Yeah. That's a really good point as well, because I can't remember who said it earlier, but someone made the point of how a technical founder will approach it differently to like a business founder. Obviously, the technical founder, like you say, is just purely about the technology, what they're building, how it's going to work, and how it kind of looks behind the scenes. Whereas obviously the business person is more focused on product market fit, what the customers really need and want. So I think having that combination is from what you've just said, David, is probably the best solution if possible. Any other thoughts on positive or really negative stories?
Yeah, I can add one from the big corporate sector. So mostly, but I think always we have a big whole complex projects and products who have a ton of legacy system underlying it. So it's really, really challenging to build or revamp a new product, because every time when we start laying out the design or architecture, we ended up an infinite solution mode. And recently, we have successfully did the first pilot launch, and 2 years back, we were in the same situation. And then we ended up start designing with the backward approach, that what we wanted to show it to the customer, and going to backward and just splitting out the complexity into small chunks and see what is possible we can achieve it in less time period. So we have something, because we know it's a complex product, and no matter what, we cannot spend 10 years on building that. We have to build something. So we start from backward approach, and it works really well, at least especially in the complex system, where we have less problem with the market fit, because it's a market fit already. We have millions of customers, but we wanted to revamp the whole product with the new latest technologies.
Brilliant. Well, at least you got there in the end, right? That's all part of the journey, I suppose. But always nice to hear a little success after a struggle. Kirill, Alex, any kind of ideas that have sprung to mind whilst David and Erum have been talking?
I mean, depends on how much we can turn this into 4 hours of humility. But just to first to say, everything depends on the context you are, whether we are talking hiring, like mistakes you could afford to make, depends on the industry, depends your size, you have customers, do you have one, But what I would like to say is the highs. I'm kind of really a nerd. I like to be hands-on, and work with the code and build architecture and whatnot. But I really enjoyed the most in the early stages of, just creating a concept. Like there is a world of possibilities that you have, been given to carve out a new opportunity, new business in the world. Then you go into, critical stages, you and someone else in the industry learn how to make a product, and that's like very exhilarating experience. Like when you grown, let's say fast forward 10 years later, you have like 50 employees working there. It's just work, you've delegated a lot of responsibility, you are growing teams, you have capacity to hire a principal and junior team and have one-on-one and coaching and things like this. Progress, right? But about, I would say, like, at least as I have experienced it in the early stage, even of products, it's a journey. Aleksandar today, it just did not get born today. Like, it developed with -1 going back 10 years. I would say take a shortcut. Simplify things. Like, for example, the fastest thing you could do, like, to grow, in my opinion, a developer and yourself, is to simplify things. We can spend hours talking about complex real-time architecture. Simply, that exercise bring you, to essentially grow, understand, bridge engineering, bridge people. Generally, engineering is easy. Generally, more people are difficult. As you grow, if you're early in your career, sweat the details. Like, doesn't mean, anxiety, perfectionism. But you don't want people to double check triple check your work, because you didn't, sweat the details. Like, take ownership. As you grow, you take more ownership and you have more influence. Like, don't, be scared behind the ego, to build. Aleksandar has an image and it has to be perfect. And, the product that Aleksandar is building has to be perfect. Like, start early, attack the same problem from multiple fronts, like demo it, talk to actual customers, release it. It's gonna be better, but you learn, you grow thick skin, and you tune better, and then you're gonna make less mistakes over time. And hopefully, when 10 years in the future, you make less mistakes and you get more things right. I would just say, like,
embrace the journey. Yeah,
exactly. It's a journey. That's it. Like, and in the case of Glaze, maybe I just take another minute. I was so lucky to be able to actually work on Glaze. There are few people from Microsoft in Glaze that we got together and then got hired. Another one. It's a journey. It really is a journey. Like, I'm happy and grateful to be here with the group of people doing what you're doing. But I guess I wouldn't have had the chance to be here if I didn't sweat the details 10 years ago and, grew a thick skin and, with a bunch of failures on the way and so on and so on.
amazing, awesome. Just kind of conscious on time. I know we've been on for almost an hour. We've covered a lot of the points that we were going to go through in the initial kind of topics that we were going to cover. But is there anything else that people want to bring up? Anything else that they feel we've missed or is important to mention based around the kind of topics that we've already covered? No, all good. Perfect. Okay, no worries at all. Well, in that case, really appreciate everyone's time again. I know I mentioned it at the start. I know everyone's incredibly busy, so if you've taken an hour out of your day to come along to this conversation, contribute your kind of knowledge and experience is massively appreciated. I hope you've all taken something away from it yourselves. Who knows, you may be in the future looking to build another kind of product from the ground up or another business from the ground up. And hopefully anyone watching who's kind of at the start of that journey or thinking about making that step has been able to take something away from Kirill, Alex, David, and Erum today. So thanks a lot, everyone, for joining, and I'll speak to you all again very soon. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.